Hello guys, my name is Kimberly Brown and the title of my story is What My Mimi Taught Me About Love. I grew up with the best grandma in the world. Her name was Mimi and I know without a doubt that I was her favorite granddaughter. And if you don't believe me, that's fine, but I promise you I know this for a fact. My Mimi was a strong woman, both physically and mentally. She was 6 feet tall and she could handle herself in just about any situation. The great thing about Mimi is she loved as fiercely as she was strong, and I hope and pray that she passed that strength down to me. My parents divorced when I was just 3 years old, and because of that, we spent just about every weekend and all the school holidays with my Mimi and Papa at their house out in New Deal. I was my Mimi's girl, and my sister was Papa's girl. It worked out beautifully. As a young girl, I would sit in my Mimi's lap while we watched Wheel of Fortune and Hee Haw, and I would rub her fingernails, which were so beautiful, and they were usually painted either a bright red or a bright pink. Mimi would let me sit that way for hours, and she would hug me, she would play with my hair, randomly kiss my cheek, and I remember thinking to myself that one day I want to be a grandma just like her. Side note on that, little did I realize that meant I had to raise teenagers first, but that's beside the point. As I got a little older, my Mimi started teaching me things. She loved playing the piano, especially old hymns from church, and she would sit me beside her on her piano bench, and she would teach me to play. Now, let's be honest, I don't remember ever being good at the piano, but I remember that she praised me and she loved me to the point that I thought for sure I was the best piano player in town. It was only New Deal, so it wasn't a big town. Mimi also loved to sew and cross stitch and quilt, and she would set me in her sewing room for hours with my own project to work on. To be quite honest, I don't also remember being good at sewing, other than minor buttons and little repairs. But I do remember that I loved spending that time with her in her sewing room, and I remember thinking to myself again, I want nothing more than to be like my Mimi when I grow up. Fast forward to my teenage years. At about 13, I started thinking I was too busy to spend every weekend with my Mimi, and I started spending less and less time with her. We had the occasional sleepovers here and there, but I was 13. I was spending time with my friends. Then one day, it was the summer before I turned 15, my grandparents called my mom and asked if we could all come over to the house because they needed to talk to us. My mom quickly gathered us up, knowing that it was something serious, and we all headed to New Deal to see what was going on. We all sat together in that same living room where I remember watching Wheel of Fortune and Hee Haw, and my Mimi told us that her cancer was back, and this time it was bad. I remember sitting there scared, angry, tears running down my face, wondering why cancer had to get my Mimi. It just wasn't fair. And for almost 2 years, I had been selfish and too busy to spend time with the most amazing person in the world. I made a promise to myself that no matter what, I was going to spend as much time with my Mimi as I could. She started chemo almost immediately, and she lost all her hair and so much weight that she didn't look like that strong woman physically that she had always been. But she was still strong. She was fighting. About 6 months into treatment, Mimi was put in the hospital for an infection of some kind, and we found out that that cancer had spread everywhere. My parents knew I was having a hard time with it, and they let me stay at that hospital with her every weekend, every single day that I was out of school. I didn't have to go to, I didn't do anything with my friends. I just spent time with her. I painted her nails, which were now weak and brittle, put lotion on her hands and feet. I read to her funny stories and stories from the Bible, of course. By May of 1996, my Mimi was placed on hospice, and she was sent home to be more comfortable. She had lost her ability to talk, but her eyes communicated with me, and I knew what she wanted or needed. We all spent every second with her and loved her until her last breath she took on July 3rd of 1996. My Mimi was strong in all the ways that mattered, but she wasn't strong enough to fight cancer. Thankfully, I had so many opportunities to learn about being strong in life, being strong in love, all from the best person I've ever known. As I grow older, my biggest wish is that my kids and my future grandkids will see me as strong as I did my Mimi, and that they will know that I will love them just as fiercely as I possibly can. And one day my flesh will die, but my love for them never will. I just want to thank y'all for listening to my story, and I hope that you have someone in your life who was as strong as my Mimi.